Good morning, everyone. Hello, hello, hello. I hope everyone is doing well. Thanks for tuning in to Let's Talk About It Media 21, where we talk hot topics, trending topics, what's going on in the news around the world. Just allow me a few moments to get my disclaimer going. I hope everyone's having a great morning. I for tuning in. We're going to get into some news, and I might do another live in regards to some other hot topics that's going on. I'll decide whether I'll do that or not. But like the video as you guys come in. Let me go ahead and do my disclaimer. I hope everyone's doing well. Like the video as you guys come in. Don't forget to hit subscribe. Let me go ahead and do our alleged period. Copyright disclaimer under Section 107 of the Copyright Act of 1976, allowance is made for fair use for purposes such as criticism, comments, news reporting, teaching, scholarships and research. Fair use is used permitted by a copyright statute that might otherwise be infringing. All comments are alleged, in our opinion, and for entertainment purposes. Thanks for being here, everyone. I appreciate everyone for subscribing, tuning in. We're going to get straight into it. Just allow me one more second to please like the video, and that's just by thumbsing up the video. It helps keep us in the algorithm. It helps the channel greatly. And to hit the like button, it is free. So go ahead, hit the like button. So let's go ahead and get into the clip. Let me pin that. So there's always a few things we have to do before we get started. And it takes people a few moments to get in and for the notifications to go out. So that's why I go ahead and do it in the beginning. Let's go ahead and get into this video and get into the topics. Thanks for being here, everyone. Like the videos you guys come in.
The weekend threatening massive tariffs on Canada. The president posting this: if Canada makes a deal with China, it will immediately be hit with 100% all Canadian goods and products coming into the USA. Now, the Canadian Prime Minister, Carney, now pushing back, saying this on Sunday: we have no intention of doing that with China or any other non-market economy. What we have done with China is to rectify some issues that developed in the last couple of years. So where does this stand? I want to bring in Kevin O'Leary, chairman of O'Leary Ventures, who now is apparently a great actor, too, after his spell in Marty Supreme. Well done, Kevin. I want to congratulate you on that.
Trump has talked about Canada for almost 14 weeks, and all of a sudden in that speech in Davos, the spitball fight between the two of them, all of a sudden became top agenda item for both countries. But here's why it's important. If you actually look at the Canadian index, the stock market in the last 12 months, it has doubled the performance of the U.S. If you look at the Canadian dollar, it's an up 0.2%. You've basically made almost 40% going long Canada because the market believes that these two countries have to unite one way or another economically, not from a sovereign basis. And Trump made that clear, just joining the dots for everybody now, when he said Greenland was a strategic importance in terms of missile defense. Now, Alaska, everybody knows you've got Greenland on the east now, or should have it, sounds like it. But the big hole in the middle, that's Canada. That's the NORAD agreement. And that technology is so old up there, you have to go out of the tent with a firecracker lighter to get a missile going. It's floppy disks. It's 1960s technology. So billions have to be spent. If you want a defense dome, Canada's got to be part of it. And frankly, the countries need each other. 70% of what's purchased out of Canada comes out of the United States. So this is the... And I'm very proud to make, I think, this announcement of a negotiation. I know it sounds crazy, but these two have to kiss and make up, because both have something the other desperately needs.
Yeah, President Trump is going to be pushing for Canada to spend more money because they ain't doing it on their own national defense. I think they bought 4 submarines from the Brits years ago. I don't think any one of the 4 is at a dry dock. It's maintenance all the time. Couple things here. Let me roll the Treasury Secretary from Sunday. Then I want to change topics here. All right, Scott Bessent on this battle back and forth with Canada.
Let Canada become an opening that the Chinese pour their cheap goods into the U.S. We have a USMCA agreement, but based on that, which is going to be renegotiated this summer, and I'm not sure what Prime Minister Carney is doing here, other than trying to virtue signal to his globalist friends at Davos. I don't think he's doing the best job for the Canadian people.
Let's see where that goes. Pretty good line there at the end. A shout about Davos, and you know those parts very well. In Iowa. He's going to be in the town of Clive, which is west of Des Moines. What does he say? How does he get everybody behind him saying, we're going the right direction? It's a new year in 2026.
Well, one of the challenges, because I invest in ag tech, and so when you tariff potash and you don't make enough of it yourself, it's just a tariff on farmers, and so you got to give them back something, and that's what he's doing. This is his constituency for the midterms, but I've always felt that potash was made by bats hundreds of thousands of years ago, and they happen to do their poo-poo in Saskatchewan, because that's what potash is, and it's the #1 fertilizer. It's bat poo, but it's all up in Saskatchewan. So why tariff it? I mean, it makes no sense. So a little fine-tuning on the tariffs, or just a moratorium on things you don't make enough of, like softwood lumber. But I think he can fine-tune that before the midterms, if that's what he's doing. And the Bessett comment kind of ties to it. I agree with you. You're 100% right when you say Canada has to spend more money. So I think where we're going with this, ultimately, before Trump has left the administration, is that these two economies are going to be united. I think no tariffs, and then we're going to go to the Chinese and say we're spending 5% of GDP of this behemoth united economy, and we're looking at you guys. Don't mess with us, because it'll be the biggest economy on earth by miles. The Chinese will never catch up. That's where we're going with all of this.
Wow, I like it. Okay, don't know when we get there. Hopefully sooner rather than later. Nice to see you, Kevin.
Take care.
Like the video, fair use, reaction clip. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, everyone. Thanks for being here. Thanks for tuning in. Like the video as you guys come in. I appreciate everyone for being here. Come on in and like the video.
Jump in my new EV with me. I found it on Car.
Like the video as you guys come in. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Hold on one second.
The Attorney General provides a gift that ends up defeating the Trump administration's position in a courtroom. We may have just seen it again with a letter that was sent by Pam Bondi on the 24th of January to Tim Walz, the governor of Minnesota, which became the subject of a half-day hearing today in Judge Menendez's courtroom about whether she's going to issue an injunction to get ICE and the Trump administration and their boots on the ground out of Minnesota. Before Pam Bondi sent the letter, I think it was 50-50. But now the judge thinks that letter, and I'm going to read it to you, and we're going to post it in Legal AF Substack, is so interesting that she wants additional briefing before she enters her order. That's a bad sign for the Trump administration. You can always count on Pam Bondi to give a gift to the blue states and blue cities that she's opposed. She did it once again. Let's call it an own goal by the Trump administration and its Department of Justice. I'm Michael Popak. Welcome to Tuesday on Legal AF. We got to follow the developments in Minnesota. Probably half my videos are going to be about Minnesota here and on Legal AF Substack. So the judge pulled everybody together for a hearing yesterday. And the purpose of the hearing was whether she was going to grant a temporary restraining order, which is a shorter term block, or a long-term block in the form of a preliminary injunction against the Trump administration for continuing to use inappropriate tactics and techniques through Border Patrol and ICE against First Amendment protesters, U.S. citizens. Now that whole process, that filing by the state of Minnesota in the case against Kristi Noem and the others, that actually started after Renee Good was shot and killed and murdered, shot 3 times by a ICE agent named Jonathan Ross. And before, though, in the last 2 days, Alex Preti was shot 10 times, a U.S. citizen, for exercising his First Amendment rights and his Second Amendment rights. And sort of in between all this, right after, actually the day of Preti's murder, Pam Bondi decided she was going to send Tim Walz a letter while the case was ongoing. What could go wrong? Does she acknowledge the death of Mr. Preti? No. It gets filed on the day after his death. Be a good time to drop a footnote about it. There's footnotes about dangerous gangs. There's footnotes about murder and child rape. There's footnotes about the Mayor Frey, telling ICE to get the F out of Minnesota, or people that went to church to protest somebody that was associated with ICE. But buried in that letter was 3 things that concerned the judge, Judge Menendez, during the hearing. Take a moment, hit the free subscribe button here. Consider becoming a paid member. Come over to Legal AF Substack, and you can read the letter for yourself. All right. So we get the letter. It starts with Governor Walz. The state of Minnesota has refused to enforce the law, and it's heartbreaking. Okay. Unfortunately, she says, you've chose to ignore federal immigration law by enacting sanctuary laws and policies. So now the judge, having got this letter, says, is this about you trying to do, through a ICE occupation and military presence, that which you cannot obtain through a court? Is that why you did it? And now she's wondering if this is just a quid pro quo. You do this. You give us voter data. You give us Medicare fraud information or information from that. You stop operating as a sanctuary city, and maybe we'll pull out the 3,000 ICE agents that are there, right? 3,000 against 600 total law enforcement in a city of that size. So the judge has already troubled Menendez, Biden appointee, by her powers. What is her remedy? She's already got chastised or slapped back twice by the Eighth Circuit in the last week about her earlier injunction in favor of protesters to stop them from being abused. This is before Alex Preddy was killed. The Eighth Circuit doesn't care about people dying in the streets of Minnesota and continues to block her injunction. So she is troubled about what she's allowed to do. I mean, one court in particular, the Seventh Circuit Court of Appeals in Chicago, in response to a different order but similar by Judge Ellis, effectively said, you can't interfere with law enforcement operations on the ground. You can only remedy if there's violations of law or the Constitution. In other words, you can't step in front of the car and stop the car accident. You can just issue a remedy after the car accident has happened. You can't stop it. You got to watch it. And when it happens, then you can remedy it. That's your job as a judge. The Eighth Circuit sort of taken that position. So we've got a judge who's worried about having an order that will be upheld. But she's also troubled by this Pam Bondi letter, which came up several times during the hearing. So it was no shock that she issued an order on supplemental briefing. I'll go over next, but let me finish the letter. And this is the part that concerned the judge. 3 parts. Bottom of page 3 of the letter, or bottom of page 2 of the letter, over to page 3. By the way, the letter has no page numbers. Pam Bondi's people don't know how to prepare a proper Word document. You and your office must restore the rule of law, support ICE officers, and bring an end to the chaos in Minnesota. First, share all of Minnesota's records on Medicaid and food programs like SNAP with the federal government, allowing it to efficiently investigate the fraud. Sounds like a policy request, a policy change demand, not a need for ICE to be surged into the streets of Minneapolis, right? Okay. Let's go to second. What's second? Second, repeal the sanctuary policies. Okay. All right. I urge you to reach an agreement with ICE that allows them to remove illegal aliens and avoids pushing interactions into your streets, and to allow with longer immigration detainers in custody. Keep people in detention longer than Minnesota wants. And third, allow the Civil Rights Division of the Department of Justice, which has been completely destroyed by Harmeet Dillon, a Republican hack, to access voter rolls to confirm voter registration practices. What does this have to do with anything? So the judge questioned it. And the judge in her hearing today, trying to find sort of that quid pro quo, said, and in response to all this, the judge said, how is this not retribution? How is this not quid pro quo? How is this not you wanting to change the politics and the policies of Minnesota through occupation and violation of the 10th Amendment, which you cannot do? And they didn't have a good answer for it. So the judge entered this order just last night as follows: to ensure that the court has provided all parties.
Like the video, fair use reaction clip. Please continue to like the video, everyone. Don't forget to subscribe, and thank you.
It's a full opportunity to be heard. The court instructs the defendants to file a supplemental memo to address plaintiffs' assertion, that's the state of Minnesota, that the purpose of Operation Metro Surge is to punish plaintiffs for adopting sanctuary laws and policies, to coerce them into changing state and local law, to compel the plaintiffs to direct state and local resources to facilitate information sharing with the feds, and cause plaintiffs to direct more resources towards holding immigrants longer in detention than they otherwise were allowed. They want this. She wants this information so that it can be explored fully by the court. So they have until Wednesday, tomorrow at 6 p.m. to file it. But this is all because of Pam Bondi's idiotic letter, in which she laid out this is no rationale for the justification to violate the 10th Amendment of state sovereignty and send in the ICE brigade when all they're trying to do is change policy. Next step, I'll tell you what, she's going to wait for this ruling, and then she's going to, this submission, then she's going to make her ruling. And we'll follow it here on Legal AF. You want to be here for it, hit this free subscribe button. Come over to Legal.
Like the video. Let's continue fair use reaction clip. Please like the video as you guys come in. Thanks for being here. Like the video as you guys come in. Hold on one second.
Killing of VA nurse Alex Preddy over the weekend in Minnesota and the rush to judgment by Trump administration officials, Democratic politicians around the country have been expressing their outrage, and today was no different.
United States citizens, particularly those of color, live in fear. United States citizens are carrying papers to prove their citizenship. That's wrong. ICE has authorized its agents to raid homes using a civil warrant that need only be signed by a Border Patrol agent. That's unconstitutional, and it's wrong. Weaponizing criminal investigations against political opponents is unconstitutional, regardless of who is in power.
Wow, some harsh condemnation, but it's a good thing that Democrats are... Oh, I'm sorry? He's a what now?
One Republican candidate for governor is dropping out of the race over what's happening with the federal crackdown in Minnesota.
That's right. The Republican candidate for governor, Chris Mattel, has decided that Donald Trump's Republican Party is waging a violent retribution campaign in his state. And besides finding it tragic for our nation and his constituents, he also knows that there's no amount of pandering possible that could possibly see him winning the governorship if he stays aligned with the GOP. And Mattel is far from the only Republican taking issue with American citizens being gunned down in the streets by ICE agents and then lied to about it. Texas Governor Greg Abbott has come out to say that ICE needs to recalibrate. Multiple Republican senators have spoken out, including Kentucky's Rand Paul, who's calling on the heads of ICE, CBP, and USCIS to testify. Homeland Security Committee, Indiana's Todd Young, who's calling for a full transparent investigation, and Utah's John Curtis, who said that officials who rush to judgment before all the facts are known undermine public trust and the law enforcement mission. Even Texas's Ted Cruz, who was guilted into returning back to his state of Texas from the Marxist utopia of California during this current winter storm, dared lob some mild criticism at this administration.
I think the administration could do better, is the tone with describing this. That immediately when an incident like this happens, they come out, guns
Like the video, fair use, reaction clip.
blazing, that we took out a violent terrorist. Hooray.
Yes, that's Ted Cruz recommending the administration strike a different tone when describing the shooting in Minnesota by saying they shouldn't come out, oh, what was it again?
Guns blazing.
Got it. By the way, if you're in a crisis and looking for someone to handle your PR, I couldn't recommend Ted Cruz more. He worked wonders for Diddy's team when he advised them to describe his persecution as a slippery slope. Even one of Trump's biggest supporters wasn't buying what Republicans are selling.
Another individual is dead at the hands of Border Patrol. Let's be clear. We do not know if there was any pushback from this individual who was armed. We do not have evidence that he was waving a gun, doing anything to threaten Border Patrol. How was he threatening Border Patrol? You've collected the evidence, you said, right? You have the handgun in your possession?
That's right.
And how was he using that handgun in terms of threatening Border Patrol? What was the threat? He had his camera, right? He was filming it.
Wow, Kash Patel looks like a deer in headlights. Well, more than usual. But look, Kash is a rule follower and the rules are clear. He's got no sympathy for a man who shows up to a protest with a loaded weapon.
If Kyle Rittenhouse's team is listening, or your audience is tweeting, this is what Fight with Kash is for. We will help Kyle Rittenhouse's defamation cases. We will pay for them by raising money so he can clear his name.
I'm sorry, that was the wrong clip. That was Kash throwing out an open invitation to Kyle Rittenhouse's legal team because gun-toting patriots deserve all the help they can get. Here's Kash's take on the other guy with a gun in Minnesota.
You cannot bring a firearm loaded with multiple magazines to any sort of protest that you want. It's that simple. You don't have that right to break the law and incite violence.
Got it. It's a good thing Rittenhouse wasn't looking to incite violence and instead just flat out committed it. And the penalty for that is getting an invite to Mar-a-Lago. Their hypocrisy is pathetic because these people said nothing years ago when some other Americans took issue with what was happening on their streets.
A crowd of people who refer to themselves as patriots, armed with guns and American flags. The rally led by Dylan Stevens of Texas and known to many as the Angry Viking, frustrated by those who have threatened to burn the city.
Americans, what they do is they scare you into thinking you're a racist for standing up for this right here, for standing up for Louisville. And I tell these people in my videos every single time, sometimes you gotta be comfortable being uncomfortable.
Not gonna lie, being comfortable with being uncomfortable is actually a mantra that I swear by too. That's why whenever I fly, I book a middle seat in the last row and specifically ask to be seated next to a baby. But I'm sure that scenario, streets filled with large AR-15 carrying men just like Minnesota, did not end well.
Louisville Metro Police did show up and things de-escalated pretty quickly after that. Within 2 hours, the mood at Jefferson Square Park is calm again.
Huh, so it can be done? What do you know? Today, as more and more Republicans jump ship, the White House damage control mode over their team's immediate reaction to this weekend's tragedy. Noam said an agent had fired defensive shots. Greg Bovino said that he was out to massacre law enforcement. And Stephen Miller called Preddy a domestic terrorist and would-be assassin, none of which are true. And because none of it is true, the White House had to get creative.
Why did administration officials jump to conclusions before an investigation had even been conducted?
Well, look, this has obviously been a very fluid and fast-moving situation throughout the weekend.
Fluid and fast-moving? That's supposed to be the excuse for why you don't have answers yet, not why your people lied. That's like a married guy getting caught in bed with another woman and saying that the situation is fluid and fast-moving. Actually, that's sort of an accurate description. Sorry.
Why you should never get a dog once you hit 60 years old.
Like the video, fair use, reaction clip. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button. We're trying to hit 50K. Let's continue, fair use.
Accurate description. Sorry. But sadly, besides this administration's need to gaslight the American people, they also seem to be suffering from memory issues too.
These agitators are making it nearly impossible for ICE to do their jobs and for federal law enforcement to carry out the will of the American people to deport the worst of the worst. I would just encourage everyone to please imagine in this room, all of you come to the White House every day to report on the president of States in the administration. You come into this briefing room, you walk through the gates of the White House. Just imagine if there were left-wing agitators or agitators of any kind who were in your face, who were doxing you, who were harassing you, who were physically threatening you, who were biting off your fingers. That would make it very difficult for you to show up and do your job here at the White House every single day.
Yes, just imagine that. I'm even trying to do it now. Agitators, aggressive ones, coming to DC to get in people's faces in an attempt to prevent them from doing their jobs. Can you keep it down? I'm trying to imagine what that world would look like. Fuck it, I guess I'll never know. The reality is, just like the videos of Alex Preddy and Renee Good, people around the world can see the truth with their own eyes. And that truth is how deceitful this administration is willing to be to further their narrative that every peaceful protester who takes issue with the tactics of ICE is somehow a paid domestic terrorist hell-bent on destroying America. And it's not surprising that people like Kristi Noem, Stephen Miller, and Greg Bovino are sticking to the mantra of never apologize, never back down, because that might as well be the title of Donald Trump's playbook. Not to be confused with Donald Trump's favorite book, The Very Swollen Ankled Caterpillar. There is not a single situation Donald Trump has ever found himself in that he hasn't attempted to explain away. He doesn't receive less votes than other candidates.
It was a rigged election.
Donald Trump doesn't knowingly pardon billionaire money laundering crypto criminals because they're making him rich.
Why did you pardon him?
Okay, are you ready? I don't know who he is.
And this man definitely doesn't actually grab women by the pussy.
This was locker room talk.
This man wouldn't even reconsider his words after heaping praise on a sex trafficking ring.
The other day, a reporter asked you about Ghislaine Maxwell. You said, quote, "I just wish her well, frankly. I've met her numerous times over the years, especially since I lived in Palm Beach, but I wish her well, whatever it is." Mr. President, Ghislaine Maxwell has been arrested on allegations of child sex trafficking. Why would you wish such a person well?
I don't know that, but I do know that
She has. She's been arrested for that.
her
You know that.
friend or boyfriend
Epstein.
was either killed or committed suicide in jail. She's
Dot,
going to
dot,
jail.
dot, dot.
I wish you well. I'd wish you well. I'd wish a lot of people well.
I wish everyone well. What, all of a sudden I'm not allowed to send Larry Nassar a birthday card? The words, "I made a mistake and I apologize," have never come out of this man's mouth. And he gave us Eric. So it makes complete sense that Donald Trump would surround himself with people who are willing to operate the exact same way as him. People who will respond to questions about an American protester being murdered with a response like this.
Calling law enforcement names like Gestapo. That is made. There are actions and consequences that come from those choices. So when you choose to listen to that, that is a choice, and there are consequences and actions there also.
I don't know, man. There's just something about a law enforcement official warning Americans that bad stuff will happen if they keep calling ICE officers names that feels pretty Gestapo-y. Republicans are jumping ship because, as it turns out, the senseless murdering of innocent protesters is a bridge too far. And the more Donald Trump's unrelenting minions dig their heels in on the lies over Alex Preddy's death, the more they are exposed as nothing more than heartless, power-hungry sycophants devoid of any sense of morality. Not that this White House will ever admit that. To them, it's just a...
Very fluid and fast-moving situation.
Exactly.
Like the video, fair use reaction clip. Like the video as you guys come in. Hold on one second. Like the video as you guys come in. I'll play this real quick of what he said.
Presidential, and we have a little fun, but we're gonna march on down. We're gonna pass the presidential Wall of Fame. So I had a choice: Walk of Fame or Wall of Fame. And you know what I decided, right? I said walk, because I think of the Walk of Shame. And I said this was an interesting situation. So I said that was the one reason I didn't want to do that, because I said people are going to think about that, but I said I'll do it anyway. But we have the presidential Walk of Fame, and you get to see it. It's been quite an attraction for the White House, and we have a little fun. But we're gonna march on down. We're gonna pass the presidential Wall of Fame. So I had a choice: Walk of Fame or Wall of Fame.
So you see the guy behind him. He's kind of smiling in a way. Watch. Hold on one second.
And we have a little fun, but we're gonna march on down. We're gonna pass the
He's trying not to laugh.
presidential Wall
Look
of
at
Fame.
him.
So I had a choice: Walk of Fame or Wall of Fame.
He's trying not
And
to
you know what
laugh.
I decided, right? I said walk, because I think of the Walk of Shame. And I said this was an interesting situation. So I said that was the one reason I didn't want to do that, because I said people are going to think about that, but I said I'll do it anyway. But we have the presidential Walk of Fame, and you get to see it. It's been quite an attraction for the White House, and we have a little fun. But we're gonna march on down. We're gonna pass the presidential Wall of Fame. So
Okay, so let's continue. Fair use reaction clip. Thanks for being here, everyone. Thanks for being here. We're just doing some hot topics, trending topics.
I have two primary reasons for this decision. Number one, I cannot support the National Republicans' stated retribution on the citizens of our state, nor can I count myself a member of a party that would do so. I support the originally stated goals of Immigrations and Customs Enforcement's Operation Metro Surge in locating and deporting the worst of the worst from our state. And I've seen many examples of ICE arresting non-U.S. citizens in Minnesota convicted of serious crimes, including murder, rape, and child sexual assault. No reasonable person should want these people here, and I am glad that they are gone. But Operation Metro Surge has expanded far beyond its stated focus on true public safety threats. United States citizens, particularly those of color, live in fear. United States citizens are carrying papers to prove their citizenship. That's wrong. ICE has authorized its agents to raid homes using a civil warrant that need only be signed by a Border Patrol agent. That's unconstitutional, and it's wrong. Weaponizing criminal investigations against political opponents is unconstitutional, regardless of who is in power. Republicans and Democrats alike have engaged in this misconduct, and both must be held to the same standard. They need to do better. And I have read about and I have spoken to countless United States citizens who have been detained in Minnesota due to the color of their skin. I personally have spoken to several law enforcement officers, some Hispanic and some Asian, who have been pulled over by ICE on pretextual stops. Driving while Hispanic is not a crime. Either is driving while Asian. At the end of the day, I have to look my daughters in the eye and tell them I believe I did what was right. And I am doing that today. Now, the second reason I'm ending my campaign is that I am, above all else, a pragmatist. And the reality is that the National Republicans have made it nearly impossible for a Republican to win a statewide election in Minnesota. It is a simple...
What are you doing in a meeting that could have been an email?
Like the video, like the video. Fair use reaction clip.
Playing Oak Fifi JFJFVFG.
Like the videos, you guys come in. I don't know what the heck happened. Hold on one second. Like the videos, you guys come in. Hold on.
Political opponent. Now, the second reason I'm ending my campaign is that I am, above all else, a pragmatist. And the reality is that the National Republicans have made it nearly for a Republican to win a statewide election in Minnesota. It is a simple fact.
That was Republican Chris Mattel, who just today dropped out of the race for Minnesota governor because of what was happening with ICE. And of course, Mattel is only the latest in a long, long line of Republicans and right-wingers who've expressed everything from uneasiness to outright contempt for the way that ICE has comported itself, from the NRA to Greg Abbott to Maria Bartiromo to Kevin Stitt and on and on. But note how he said this.
Now, the second reason I'm ending my campaign is that I am, above all else, a pragmatist. And the reality is that they made it nearly impossible for a Republican to win a statewide election in Minnesota. It is a simple fact.
Think about the advantage that Trump has burned in just 1 year. In the lead up to 2024, there was so much ink spilled about how toxic the Democratic brand was. The GOP had a massive leg up. Now, I'm not saying the Democrats have solved their brand problems, far from it. And in fact, I've said 100 times that the way for Democrats to actually fix their brand is to vote in new officials who are younger, more dynamic, less establishment, more populist, and better represent the communities that they serve. And once they do, that is how the brand will get fixed. But what is true is that in just 1 year, Trump has eviscerated their advantage to the point where Republican candidates can't even run as Republicans in a state like Minnesota, which, by the way, is not exactly Vermont. I spoke with data journalist Elliot Morris about the implications for Republicans on that point. Here's what he had to say.
It's another good reminder to not be so myopic when we're evaluating the electorate, to not be so short-sighted, because conditions really can change pretty fast. So if you're a Democrat in 2024, you don't want to be running to the left of Kamala Harris. You're definitely not going to win. I don't think any Democrat would have won in 2024, but if you are AOC, you're definitely not winning in 2024. Now, Kamala Harris, if he reran the election, might win, and the AOC figure could have a pretty good shot because of where the public has gone on these key issues. That Donald Trump doesn't have his inflation advantage anymore. He does not have an advantage on immigration. This whole 50-point swing in abolish ICE is evidence of that. So if you are trying to write electoral strategy, it's just a really good reminder not to overread short-term trends The thing I've been writing about, I wrote, I think, about this in July of 2025. Republicans, even a year ago, were seen as focusing too much on immigration. Like right when Donald Trump was elected president, his policy that that people say he won the election on, even as early in his presidency as January 2025, people were saying, there's like too much focus on this. So there's also just sort of a misreading component, I think, going on when people are trying to make strategic prescriptions for the Democratic Party. And equally, like you don't want to be an extremist on the Republican side either. Donald Trump is showing what happens when you are.
And I should note that the full interview with Elliot Morris is on my channel, so if you want to watch this and all other interviews, please make sure to subscribe. I'm also right on the cusp of 5 million YouTube subscribers, so if you haven't yet subscribed, this is a great time to do so. And finally, I want to hone in on one more comment that Chris Mattel made.
At the end of the day, I have to look my daughters in the eye and tell them I believe I did what was right. And I am doing that today.
At National University, career support is
like the video, fair use reaction clip. Please hit the subscribe button. Please continue to hit the like button. Let's continue fair use reaction clip.
Among administration officials on the right, who view their job not as serving their constituents or displaying some basic modicum of morality, but rather just towing the line to protect dear leader Donald Trump. That's it. And if that means running defense for a secret police force demanding papers from brown people and executing American citizens in the streets, then so be it. We have seen Kristi Noem, J.D. Vance, Greg Bovee, all do it because their sole priority is making sure that Donald Trump feels adequately filleted. But at the end of the day, they're not blind. They know that what they're doing is morally bankrupt, depraved, and evil. They are making the conscious decision to act this way. And it'll come back around. I asked the top Democrat on the House Oversight Committee, Robert Garcia, about the prospect for holding these people to account once they're out of office. Here's what he had to say. I've spent a lot of time thinking about the ways in which Trump kind of feels emboldened and empowered to commit these criminal acts with impunity, and I think that was in large part due to the fact that there was no deterrent effect for him back in 2024. I mean, he tried to overturn a free and fair election. Merrick Garland didn't even touch him for 2 years, and only then did he deign to appoint a special counsel, but so much time had elapsed that he was able to effectively run out the clock. I understand that Democrats have to be focused on delivering, but I think that there's also a lot of real damage and danger in kind of advancing with an agenda where we don't look to hold anybody to account for any of the wrongdoing that they've committed, because then they feel emboldened to do it again. That's what we're seeing right now. It's playing out in real time. And so can you talk a little bit about the accountability that these folks have to shoulder so that in the event Republicans win at some point in the future, they don't proceed with the abject lawlessness that we're seeing right now because nothing bad ever happens to them at the hands of feckless Democrats?
That's where the Oversight Committee comes in. That's where a strong attorney general that the next president will hopefully be a Democrat will put in place. Look, I've said from day one that we cannot just move on. We cannot just pretend that this didn't happen. We can't just put together this forward-looking agenda and not actually then hold those that cause harm accountable. Because we need to be able to tell the next generation that this period of time was led by a corrupt administration, and an administration that harmed the American public. That should never happen again. And so holding folks, not just Donald Trump himself and the family that is causing corruption across the world, but folks like Pam Bondi and Stephen Miller and Kristi Noem, these folks have to be held accountable. They have to be look at the American public and the courts and account for what they did. So that's why the investigations and subpoenas and holding folks in contempt and impeachment are going to be really critical in the months and certainly when we have the majority.
And I think whereas Chris Mattel read the writing on the wall about what the future holds for these Republicans, the rest of them are perfectly content to continue committing these crimes against humanity. But what they should know is that Democrats have learned their lesson from the Merrick Garland era. We understand the value of deterrence, and we won't make the same mistake again. These Republican officials are about to learn that lesson firsthand.
Like the video, fair use reaction clip. Like the video as you guys come in.
I'm joined now by the ranking member of the House of...
Thanks for being here, everyone. Thanks for being here. Let's continue. Fair reaction.
In charge of the Department of Homeland Security. What consequences should she shoulder because she's in charge of this agency?
Well, she should be impeached. I mean, look, if Kristi Noem doesn't resign or removed from office, that impeachment procedure should start immediately. A resolution that's now in front of the Congress. There's no question that she has gone above and beyond the crimes which she's done to rip up our Constitution, due process for U.S. citizens, the way she's treating people, the way that she now, of course, now are killing Americans. Should be so disturbed by the images they're seeing, outraged by it.
Majority in the House, and they're in charge of all these committees.
A little bit of a spine. You're starting to see some members of Congress actually ask for independent investigations. Slim. That we've got to push aggressively to get this impeachment moving. And hopefully, we just need a couple Republicans to join us.
We've seen Republican defections on issues that have become, 70-30 or 80-20 issues before. The Epstein file discharge petition happened because there was so much public pressure to the point where Marjorie Taylor Greene, Lauren Boebert, Nancy Mace, Thomas Massie all signed on to this effort. And ultimately, the law was passed out of the House and signed by Trump. Now we have...
They're running for re-election in some districts.
Can you guys still hear me? Press 1 if you can still hear me. It was reconnecting for some odd reason. Can you guys still hear me? Press 1.
That Kamala Harris won. Many others that are trying to find their spine again and trying to do the right thing. And they're seeing Donald Trump in his complete erratic. Donald Trump is losing his mind. I mean, he can't even put together coherent sentences. He can barely reach out to the American public and explain what he's trying to do on any given day. And now he's going to American cities and turning ICE into his own police force. And so there's a lot of work ahead for us to do. The impeachment proceedings need to start immediately.
Like the video, fair use reaction clip. You guys can still hear me, right? It was reconnecting. It looked like it might have kicked some people out and then they're back in. Like the video, like the video. I think, yeah.
Former Bush officials who were in charge of standing up the Department of Homeland Security back in 2002, all of these people kind of coalescing into this one narrative that they are vehemently opposed to what the administration right now, whether it's trying to vilify Alex Preddy for the crime of holding a gun for which he had a concealed carry permit and never even held because he was holding his phone, all the way up to just again to your exact point, these executions at the hands of these ICE agencies. What does it say that all of these even right-wing voices are coming out in opposition to this?
Yeah, and it's been really great to actually see some of these right-wing groups come out. I mean, the fact that the NRA said anything, I think it's a really important step forward. But as important as some of these right-wing groups have been, a lot of these right-wing voices and leaders online, I've seen folks that have essentially always supported Trump, beginning now to say, hey, this is wrong. What ICE is doing is wrong. These are U.S. citizens. Why is ICE attacking folks this way? Why are we losing our civil liberties? The fact that DHS said that he had a gun, that has nothing to do with the fact that he wasn't using it. He's allowed to carry, people in this country are allowed to carry, and having a gun, that is not a reason to just murder someone because they are actually filming an incident, an ICE operation. And so I think a lot of folks right now are finally beginning to see the terror of this administration and the damage that Donald Trump is doing to this country. So I hope those folks continue to be loud and continue to voice their opposition.
In the aftermath of the 2024 election, there was a lot of talk about the damage that the Democratic brand had sustained. Cut to, we're now in January of 2026. Today, the gubernatorial candidate for the Republican Party in Minnesota dropped out because the brand of the GOP is so toxic. I think it was worth it to run as a Republican in that state. And so can I have your reaction to kind of that switch that we're seeing right now at the hands of a party that had, clear runway, everything going for them to the point where just, a year later, they can't even run as Republicans in certain states because the what Trump has done to that brand is so egregious.
Well, absolutely. And let's look at the polling and the research. I mean, first, Trump is historically unpopular right now. He's never been this unpopular, not just with the American public, with his own base.
Yeah.
The MAGA brand is underwater completely. Really, I'm seeing these numbers. And what's really interesting is he's not just doing poorly in traditional areas like healthcare or even on the Epstein files issue, but now on immigration. He's underwater on what used to be his signature issue, where the American public has turned on him on the one issue where he had a lot of strength. And so what you're also seeing is Republicans across the country trying to distance themselves. But more importantly, I think you're seeing energy on the Democratic side. We have a real shot, not just of winning the House, but winning the Senate. If we can somehow win the Senate, which will be very hard, there's no question about it. But if we can win the Senate and the House, we are on our way to then winning the presidency in 28 and once and for all putting MAGA away and as a horrific mark in our history, reversing all of the terror that Donald Trump has caused, and actually real agenda on day one that can be implemented with both houses of Congress. Because we're talking about Alaska, which is looking way better today than it did before. We're talking about states where Ohio is looking better than it did before. We're going to win states when we have to win states like Michigan, obviously, and New Hampshire. But look, there's an opportunity for us in places like Texas. And so we need to play in every single state, including Maine. And there's an actual shot here. It's an outside chance, but a real chance in the Senate as well.
You know, I'm glad you spoke about what we can do moving forward if we have majorities. I've spent a lot of time thinking about the ways in which Trump kind of feels emboldened and empowered to do, to commit these criminal acts with impunity. And I think that was in large part due to the fact that there was no deterrent effect for him back in 2024. I mean, he tried to overturn a free and fair election. Merrick Garland didn't even touch him for 2 years. And only then did he deign to appoint a special counsel. But so much time had elapsed that he was able to effectively run out the clock. I understand the Democrats have to be focused on delivering, but I think that there's also a lot of real damage and danger in kind of advancing with an agenda where we don't look to hold anybody to account for any of the wrongdoing that they've committed, because then they feel emboldened to do it again. That's what we're seeing right now. It's playing out in real time. And so can you talk a little bit about the accountability that these folks have to shoulder so that in the event Republicans win at some point in the future, they don't proceed with the that we're seeing right now, because nothing bad ever happens to them at the hands of feckless Democrats?
That's where the Oversight Committee comes in. That's where a strong attorney general that the next president, will hopefully be a Democrat, will put in place. Look, I've said from day one that we cannot just move on. We cannot just pretend that this didn't happen. We can't just put together this forward-looking agenda and not actually then hold those that cause harm accountable. Because we need to be able to tell the next generation that this period of time was led by a corrupt administration, an administration that harmed the American public. That should never happen again. And so holding folks, not just Donald Trump himself and the family that is causing corruption across the world, but folks like Pam Bondi and Stephen Miller and Kristi Noem, these folks have to be held accountable. They have to be look at the American public and the courts and account for what they did. So that's why the investigations and subpoenas and holding folks in contempt and impeachment are going to be really critical in the months and certainly when we have the majority.
Last point I want to touch on here is ICE salvageable?
No, you have to abolish ICE. There's no question. Look, this is not an agency that can be reformed. It's not an agency that we can somehow retrain. ICE needs to be abolished, and we need to begin to rebuild real federal law enforcement, which we had in this country before. Decades ago, there were functions that ICE performed that other agencies used to perform, and now we have such a paramilitary force that's only accountable to Donald Trump.
Right. We'll leave it there, Congressman.
Like the video. So I appreciate everyone for being here. I'm trying to debate if I'm going to do this next topic on its own. So I thank everyone for being here. We've been live for 44 minutes. I hope everyone has hit subscribe. We're trying to hit 50K by next month. Please hit the subscribe button. Please hit the subscribe button and turn on your notification. I try and leave politics by itself, and then I sometimes do hot topics, trending topics, but I think I'll separate it today. So I thank everyone for being here. Copyright disclaimer under Section 107 of the Copyright Act of 1976. Allowance is made for fair use for purposes such as criticism, comments, news reporting, teaching, scholarships, and research. Fair use is used permitted by copyright statute that might otherwise be infringing. All comments are alleged in our opinion and for entertainment purposes only. Was there one more thing? Hold on. In regards to investments. In regards to what's going on. Like the video as you guys come in. Let me see if there was anything in regards to there. Hold on one second. Hold on. Let's see if there's any updates. Hold on. Like the video. I don't think, no, I might do a separate one. Hold on, I might find it this way. Hold on. Like the video as you guys come in. Like the video. I normally try and do updates on what's going on in the world in regards to investments and the economy. So I'm trying to see if there was one. Hold on, I did find it. Hold on one second. Like the video as you guys come in. Thanks for being here, everyone. I appreciate your patience. Okay. Okay, so this may be, I'm wondering if there's going to be another government shutdown. So I'm glad I did pull it up. Like the videos, you guys come in.
Minneapolis may have all but sealed another government shutdown just days from now.
Right now, it looks increasingly likely that the federal government could shut down again by Friday.
And we're hoping that it does not. So prepare yourself. Remember what happened last time. Sometimes the government workers work time or not paid at all. So prepare yourself. Hopefully this won't happen. But everybody talked about January 30th.
January 30th.
Shooting in Minneapolis may have all but sealed another government shutdown just days from now. Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer says Democrats will not move forward with a spending bill that includes DHS funding.
This bill funds 78% of the government. It includes money for DHS and the Pentagon. They need 60 days.
What you just heard is the core of the problem. Here's what's actually happening in plain terms. Congress is responsible for passing 12 annual spending bills to fund the federal government. So far, 6 of those bills have already passed both chambers and been signed into law. That means about half of the government is already funded and would continue operating even if there is a shutdown. The issue is with the remaining 6 bills. Those cover several major departments, including defense, transportation, health and human services, education, treasury, and critically, the Department of Homeland Security. House Republicans bundled those 6 bills together into one package and sent it to the Senate. That package now needs 60 votes to advance. Republicans only have 53 seats, which means they need Democratic support to move it forward. After the fatal shooting in Minneapolis involving federal agents, Senate Democrats have drawn a firm line. They say they will not provide votes for any package that includes DHS funding unless it is separated out and rewritten with additional safeguards and accountability. Republican leadership has so far refused to split the bills, and that's where the shutdown risk comes in. If no agreement is reached by midnight on January 30th, funding for the agencies covered by those 6 bills would lapse. That would trigger a partial government shutdown, but still a very significant one. And it's worth slowing down here for a moment, because the phrase partial shutdown can be misleading. A partial shutdown does not mean the entire federal government stops functioning overnight. Some agencies remain fully funded and continue operating as usual. Others, however, lose funding and are forced to scale back sharply or pause many of their activities. What that means in practice is that essential services continue, but the systems that support them often slow down. Processing backlogs grow. Offices operate with fewer staff, and the longer a shutdown lasts, the more noticeable those effects become. To make this more concrete, let's look at a few examples. For the IRS, core operations continue. That means tax payments are still accepted, and refunds already in the system generally continue moving. But anything beyond those basic functions can slow down. That includes processing corrections, responding to notices, handling audits, and resolving issues that require human review. Even short shutdowns can create delays that last well beyond the shutdown itself. Transportation is another area people tend to feel quickly. TSA agents are considered essential workers, so airport security doesn't shut down. But during extended shutdowns, staffing shortages and lower morale can lead to longer lines and more delays, especially at busy airports or during bad weather. Housing and urban development programs can also be affected. While benefits don't necessarily stop overnight, new applications, approvals, and administrative actions can slow or pause, which can be frustrating for people already waiting on decisions. Public services like national parks and certain environmental programs may shut down entirely, depending on funding status, limiting access, and delaying maintenance and oversight work. So even though some of the most visible benefits continue, a partial shutdown still ripples through daily life in very real ways. Now, this is where broader context matters. The last shutdown stretched into November and became the longest in U.S. history at 43 days. Lawmakers on both sides remember the political, economic, and logistical damage from that period. And yet, right now, the positions appear more entrenched than they were then. Democrats argue that public opinion is on their side and that they cannot justify approving DHS funding after what they describe as repeated misconduct by federal agents. Several Democratic senators who previously voted to end the last shutdown are now saying they will not budge this time. Republicans argue that defunding DHS is unacceptable, especially amid ongoing immigration enforcement and border operations. Some have warned that giving in to Democratic demands could be seen as setting a precedent or undermining enforcement priorities. So both sides are signaling that they're prepared to absorb cloud, even if that means a shutdown. There's also a practical timing problem that makes this harder to resolve. Winter storms have already delayed Senate business, cutting into an already narrow window for votes and negotiations. At the same time, the House is currently out on recess. That means any changes to the funding package would still need to be approved by the House before the deadline, compressing the timeline even further. In other words, there are fewer working days left than it might appear, and very little margin for error. This is where the Senate math becomes important. To advance the funding package, the Senate needs 60 votes. Republicans hold 53 seats. That means at least 7 Democrats would need to support the bill for it to move forward. Democrats don't need to pass an alternative bill to block it. They simply need to withhold those votes. And right now, they're saying they will do exactly that unless DHS funding is removed from the package. That's why one unresolved issue can stall funding from multiple departments at once, and why the shutdown risk has risen so quickly. Now let's talk about what this means for you. If a shutdown begins on January 30th, not everything stops. Social Security checks would still go out. Medicare coverage would continue. Veterans benefits and military pay would continue because those departments are already funded. But many other services would be disrupted, especially those that rely on federal staff to process paperwork, approvals, or follow-up actions. Federal employees in affected agencies would either be furloughed or required to work without pay until funding is restored. That can slow down everything from tax correspondence to housing assistance to certain Medicare and Medicaid administrative functions. If the shutdown drags on, and that is a real concern, those disruptions tend to compound. Backlogs grow, contractors stop work, and agencies often struggle to catch up even after funding resumes. That's why preparation matters. If you're waiting on paperwork, approvals, or payments that involve a federal agency not already funded, it may be wise to expect delays. If you have travel coming up, especially flights, building in extra time could help reduce stress. And if you rely on services that require direct interaction with federal offices, it's important to understand that staffing may be limited. This isn't just a short-term budget disagreement. It reflects deeper political tensions that are unlikely to resolve quickly. And that increases the risk that once a shutdown begins, it could last longer than many people expect. So as January 30th approaches, the real question is whether lawmakers find a way to fund most of the government and fight over DHS separately, or whether this turns into another prolonged shutdown that tests how much disruption people are willing to absorb.
Like the video, fair use reaction clip. Like the videos, you guys come in.
And this year is not business as usual. New rules are now in effect. And if you file without understanding them, you can miss deductions, delay your refund, or even end up owing more than expected. Some of these changes can help you. Others can quietly work against you if you're not prepared, and several of them overlap in ways most people don't see at first glance. That's why paying attention right now really matters. Before we get into it, quick question for you, and this really helps me understand where everyone's at. When you usually file your taxes, do you expect a refund, or do you usually owe something? Let me know in the comments. All right, so let's talk through what's actually happening this season and why it feels different. So, tax season officially kicked off on January 26th. The IRS expects around 164 million individual returns to be filed before the April 15th deadline, which is a huge number when you think about it. And this year lines up with the first full filing season under President Donald Trump's 5 tax law, the One Big Beautiful Bill Act. Now, regardless of how anyone feels politically, the reality is that this law changed a lot of the mechanics behind how taxes work, especially for everyday filers. One thing the IRS has been really clear about is that they want people filing electronically and using direct deposit. And honestly, yeah, that still matters. E-filed returns with direct deposit are usually processed within about 21 days, sometimes faster. It can take weeks, sometimes longer, especially this year with staffing being tighter than it used to be. So if you're someone who still mails things in, you can, but just know it may test your patience a bit. Now, what's really driving all the attention this year is refunds. The Treasury Department is projecting that the average refund could be about $1,000 higher than last year. That's not pocket change. Last year, the average refund was a little over $3,000. So a jump like that gets people's attention fast. And I want to explain why this is happening, because there's a misunderstanding I see all the time. A lot of people assume a bigger refund means you earn more money or that the government just decided to be generous. But most of the time, it's about timing. You see, many people had similar withholding in 2025 as they did in 2024. Same paycheck setup, same tax taken out each pay period. But the tax law changed in the background. So your actual tax bill went down, but your withholding didn't adjust right away. That gap is now showing up as a refund. So yeah, it feels like a bonus, but in reality, it's money that could have shown up in your paycheck during the year. That's not a bad thing. It's just something to be aware of going forward. And we'll circle back to that later because it matters for 2026 planning. Another major change this year is the standard deduction. For single filers, it's now $15,750. For married couples filing jointly, it's $31,500. And for heads of household, it's $23,625. Those are meaningful increases. And since most people take the standard deduction, this affects a huge number of households without them having to do anything special. What this means in plain language is that more of your income is shielded from taxes. Less taxable income usually equals a lower tax bill. And when your withholding stayed the same, again, that often turns into a refund. Now, something else that's catching people off guard is the state and local tax deduction, also known as SALT. For years, this was capped at $10,000. For 2025 returns, that cap jumped to $40,000, with small increases each year through 2029 before it drops back down again. There's an income phase out for higher earners, so this doesn't apply to everyone. But if you live in a high tax state and you pay a lot in property taxes or state income taxes, this could be the first year in a long time where itemizing makes sense again. And I've already seen comments from people saying their tax software suddenly asked more questions than usual. That's often why. The software is trying to figure out whether itemizing now saves you more than the standard deduction. It's not broken. It's just adjusting to the new rules. Also, families are seeing some changes too. The child tax credit went up to $2,200 per qualifying child under 17. For lower income families, a portion of that is refundable, meaning you can get it even if you don't owe much in taxes. It's not a massive jump, but for families juggling groceries, gas, and everything else, it can help. For older adults, there's a new senior bonus deduction that's getting a lot of attention, and for good reason. If you're 65 or older, you may qualify for an extra $6,000 deduction on top of your standard or itemized deduction. Married couples where both qualify can get up to $12,000. There are income limits, but for many retirees living on Social Security, pensions, or IRA withdrawals, this can lower taxable income in a very real way. I've heard from viewers who are worried this might affect their Social Security taxation, and the answer is indirectly it can. Lower taxable income can sometimes mean less of your Social Security is taxable. It depends on your full income picture, but that's one of those quieter benefits people don't always see right away. Now, let's talk about the changes that have probably gotten the most headlines, tips, and overtime. Under the new law, eligible workers can deduct certain tip income and overtime pay. For tips, the deduction can go up to $25,000 for single filers with income phase-outs. Overtime deductions apply to the extra portion of time and a half pay base wages. Supporters say this rewards people who work extra hours or rely on tips without punishing them at tax time. Critics say it adds complexity in new forms. And honestly, both can be true. If this applies to you, expect a few extra questions when you file. Make sure your income is properly reported on your W-2 or other forms, because the IRS is paying attention to this area. And speaking of complexity, one thing that changed quietly is filing options.
Well, looks like you're backing up a bit here.
Like the video, like the video. Fair use reaction clip. Like the video as you guys come in. Let's continue. Please don't forget to hit the subscribe button, even if all 43 hit the subscribe. That'll be great. We're trying to hit 50K by next month. Like the video.
Use that, or we're planning to. It's not available for the 2026 season. Free filing still exists through IRS Free File if your income is under $89,000, plus volunteer programs like VITA and tax counseling for the elderly. But it does mean some people are adjusting how they file. Another shift that's important, paper refund checks are being phased out. Most people now need to use direct deposit to get their refund. The IRS says this improves security and speeds things up, which makes sense. But if you've always relied on paper checks, this is a change you want to plan for. Now, let's pause for a second and talk about the IRS itself. The agency is still modernizing, but it's also dealing with budget and staffing pressures. That means phone wait times can be longer, and returns that get flagged for review may take extra time. This doesn't mean something is wrong with your return. It just means patience is part of the process this year. This is why filing early can help. If there's an issue, it's often easier to resolve earlier in the season than in late March or April when everything backs up. And if the IRS sends you a letter, respond promptly and only through official channels. Now, remember earlier when I mentioned that bigger refunds aren't always ideal? This is where that comes back around. If you get a large refund this year, that's fine. Enjoy the relief, catch up on bills, build a cushion. But also consider reviewing your withholding for 2026. You might prefer having a little more money in each paycheck instead of waiting for it next year. I've personally been on both sides of this. There were years when the refund felt like a lifeline, and years where adjusting withholding gave me more flexibility month to month. There's no single right answer. It depends on how you manage cash flow and what helps you sleep better at night. Another thing to watch this season is accuracy. With new deductions, phase-outs, and schedules, double-checking matters more than usual. Tax software is good, but it's only as good as the information you put in. Slow down, review entries, and don't guess if you're unsure. As we move through the season, I'll keep sharing updates and answering common questions I see from you all. And yeah, I really
Thanks for being here, everyone. I just wanted, hold on.
appreciate how thoughtful and supportive this.
I just wanted to do a general update. Sometimes people are listening, paying attention. Sometimes they're not. So that's something I kind of listen to kind of update you guys. I hope everyone enjoyed the show. Thanks for tuning in too. Let's Talk About It Media 21, where we talk hot topics, trending topics, what's going on around the world. Have a great day, everyone. I might go live again, or I might just do the subject tomorrow, or I might just do it all over the weekend. There's a lot going on in regards to Kanye West, in regards to Ray J. There's a lot that's going on. So are people going to forgive Kanye West for his comments? That's something we've often talked about in regards to Kanye, what he has to say about different race and culture. He's had some medical concerns, and everyone has seen what he has said, what he's done, how he's treated people. He's lost a lot of friends over the years. So I might just do a separate video in regards to Kanye West. So thanks for being here, everyone. Have a great day. Goodbye.